Hello, today we're going to start talking about chapter 16, and we're going back to the slavery issue a little bit. And we had last talked about how we are around 1850, and California just became a state, and Texas had just become a state. And I said, once all that happens, it's going to get really chaotic in the United States. But first of all, today we're going to backtrack just a little bit to the 1820s and something called the Missouri Compromise. Now, we talked earlier in the year about compromises, the Great Compromise during the writing of the Constitution, and the Three-Fifths Compromise during the writing of the Constitution. So, a couple new ones today. The Missouri Compromise, here's kind of how this worked. It's the mid 1820s, and we had 22 states. 11 of them were free, which means that slavery was illegal, and 11 of them were slave states. Now, like we talked in the last few chapters, the free states were more in the north because they didn't have the plantations and that kind of thing. So slavery was illegal in the north, and to the south, where they had the plantations, that's where slavery was legal. So we had 11 free that had slavery illegal, and 11 where you could have slaves. Well, Missouri was going to enter the United States, and it wanted to enter as a slave state, but the Northerners didn't want this. So why do you think the Northerners wouldn't want it? Well, because that would give more slave states than free states. So that would kind of make a shift in the balance there, and it's not what the Northerners wanted. So they debated on this, they argued about it, and this went on for months whether or not to allow Missouri in as a free state, a slave state, or not let them in at all. And eventually, a man by the name of Henry Clay came up with a compromise. And his compromise worked because about the same time as all of this, Maine decided that they were ready to join or apply for statehood as well. So the compromise ended up being pretty easy. Maine would be a free state, and Missouri would be a slave state. And this would keep the total the same. Now it would be 12 and 12 with the 24 states. But they did add a little something to this. So this next line is important. They also said any new state from the Louisiana Territory to the south of the Missouri would be a slave state, and anything to the north would be a free state. Now, when they say that, they mean anything to the south of Missouri's southern border would be slave, and anything that is created that would be north of Missouri's southern border would be free. That way, they wouldn't have to have this argument every single time that we wanted to have a new state. So, if we take a look at this map, this will kind of show you what we mean. Here is Missouri, and here is basically that line, which is where Arkansas and Oklahoma area is today. But that line right there, anything to the south of it, so anything to the south here would be a slave state, and anything to the north would be a free state. Okay, and at this time, this is mid 1820s, so we did not have Texas and California yet. And we did have the Louisiana Territory, but we were still trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And then there's the Oregon country that's up there that we talked about a little bit before, too. So, this is what the United States looked like at this time. The reddish orange states were slave states, and the green states were the free states. Moving on